James Parker sat across from his date at the upscale restaurant, watching her face fall as he explained that they would need to split the check. It was the moment he dreaded and anticipated in equal measure, the moment that revealed everything. As she made a thin excuse and left before dessert arrived, he sighed, placing his credit card on the table. The waiter approached with a knowing look. "Another unsuccessful evening, Mr. Parker?" James nodded, his $8,000 watch catching the light. The curse of being a billionaire who just wants to be loved for himself. If you're wondering what happens when a man who has everything meets a woman who has nothing but gives everything, stay with me until the end. This story might just change how you see love and what truly matters in life. If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that touch the heart and soul. James Parker had everything money could buy, a tech empire worth billions, homes on 3 continents, and a collection of cars that would make any enthusiast weep with envy. At 38, he had conquered the business world, turning a small startup into Cyberfuture, one of the most valuable companies on the planet. Business magazines called him a visionary. Financial analysts tracked his every move. Women pursued him relentlessly. And James was profoundly lonely. "I don't understand why you keep doing this to yourself," said Michael, his CFO and oldest friend, as they sat in James's penthouse office overlooking the Manhattan skyline. "You're worth $27 billion. Most people would consider that an asset, not something to hide." James swirled the whiskey in his glass. "The last 3 women I dated seriously were planning wedding hashtags before the second date. The one before that leaked our conversations to a tabloid." He set the glass down with a sharp click. "I'm tired of being a prize to be won or a bank account to be accessed." "So your solution is to pretend to be broke on blind dates?" Michael raised an eyebrow. "That's not exactly honest either." "I don't pretend to be broke," James corrected. "I just don't mention my company or my position. I say I work in tech, which is true. I drive my old Honda, wear my plainest watch, and suggest affordable restaurants. If they balk at splitting the check or seem disappointed that I'm not flashing cash, I know everything I need to know." Michael shook his head. "And how's that working out for you?" James's silence was answer enough. "Your assistant set up another blind date for Friday," Michael reminded him. "Maybe this one will be different." James laughed without humor. "They never are." Across town, in a modest apartment in Queens, Emma Chen was having a very different kind of evening. After tucking her 6-year-old daughter Lily into bed with a story and a kiss, she collapsed onto her worn couch, surrounded by stacks of medical bills and past due notices. Emma rubbed her eyes, exhaustion seeping into her bones. At 34, she had never imagined this would be her life, a single mother working 2 jobs, barely keeping her head above water after her husband David had died from cancer 3 years ago, leaving her with mounting medical debt and a heartbroken little girl. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Sophia, "Don't forget, blind date on Friday. He's in tech, seems nice. You need this, Em." "I'll watch Lily." Emma groaned. The last thing she needed was a date. What she needed was about 20 more hours in each day and a miracle to pay for Lily's upcoming school expenses. "I can't," she texted back. "Too much work." "Rain check?" Sophia's response was immediate, "Absolutely not. You haven't been out in 3 years. Lily needs a happy mom. Just dinner. If he's awful, you can leave after an hour." Emma stared at the ceiling, thinking of the extra shift she'd picked up at the hospital where she worked as a nurse. She'd have to rearrange things, call in a favor. "Fine," she texted back. 1 hour. She set her phone down and glanced at the framed photo of David holding newborn Lily. "What am I doing?" she whispered to the empty room. Friday evening arrived with a spring downpour. James sat at a corner table in a modest Italian restaurant, checking his watch. His date was 10 minutes late, and he was already preparing his exit strategy. 3 more blind dates in the past month had ended the same way, initial interest fading to thinly veiled disappointment when they realized he wasn't going to whisk them away to Paris on a private jet. The door opened, bringing in a gust of rain and a harried-looking woman. Her dark hair was damp despite the small umbrella she clutched, and she scanned the restaurant with anxious eyes. When she spotted James, something like relief crossed her face. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "The subway was delayed, and then I couldn't find a cab, and," she stopped herself. "I'm Emma. You must be James." James found himself smiling genuinely for the first time that evening. "I am. And it's fine. The rain is terrible tonight." Emma unwound her scarf, revealing a simple blue dress that had seen better days but suited her slim frame. "I hope you haven't been waiting long. I almost cancelled, to be honest." "Oh?" James raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her candor. "It's been a day," she said with a tired smile. "I'm a nurse at Queen's Memorial, and we were short-staffed, and then my daughter's school called because she wasn't feeling well, and," she stopped again. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear all this." "You have a daughter?" James asked, genuinely interested. A soft smile transformed Emma's face. "Lily. She's 6 and the center of my universe." "That's a beautiful name," James said. "Is her father in the picture?" A shadow crossed Emma's face. "He passed away 3 years ago. Cancer." "I'm sorry," James said, meaning it. Emma nodded, then visibly shifted gears. "So, Sophia tells me you work in tech." "I do," James said, sticking to his usual script. "Software development. Nothing exciting." "That sounds fascinating to me," Emma said. "I can barely operate my phone sometimes." "Lily is already better with technology than I am." The waiter approached, and James watched carefully as Emma studied the menu, noting how her eyes lingered on the prices. "Would you like to share an appetizer?" she suggested. "These portions look huge." James blinked in surprise. Usually, his dates ordered the most expensive items without hesitation. "That sounds perfect," he agreed. As they settled on a simple margarita pizza to share, James found himself relaxing. Emma asked thoughtful questions about his work, laughing when he described office politics without revealing he was actually the CEO. She told him about her nursing career, her voice animated when she described helping patients through difficult times. "I should warn you," she said as they finished their shared entree, "I have a strict budget for tonight. Would you mind if we split the check?" James nearly choked on his water. "You want to split the check?" Emma's cheeks flushed. "I know it's not traditional, but I believe in equality. And honestly, I don't like feeling indebted to anyone." For the first time in years, James felt something shift inside him. "I'd be happy to split the check," he said softly. As the evening progressed, James found himself forgetting his usual caution. Emma spoke about Lily with such love, described her struggles with such dignity, and laughed with such genuine warmth that he found himself wanting to know everything about her. When she glanced at her watch and mentioned she should get home to relieve her friend who was watching Lily, James felt a pang of disappointment. "I'd like to see you again," he said as they stood outside under his umbrella, the rain still falling steadily. Emma looked up at him, surprise and something like pleasure in her eyes. "I'd like that too. But my life is complicated, James. Lily comes first, always. And my schedule is a nightmare." "I understand," he said, though he had no real concept of the challenges she faced. "We can work around it." As he watched her hurry toward the subway, declining his offer of a cab with a shake of her head, James realized he hadn't felt this way in a very long time. He hadn't planned on a second date with anyone. But Emma was different. Over the next few weeks, James found himself drawn deeper into Emma's world. They met for coffee during her breaks at the hospital. He joined her and Lily for an afternoon at the park, where the little girl regarded him with solemn eyes before deciding he was acceptable when he helped her build the tallest sandcastle in the playground. Each time, he arrived in his old Honda, wore his simplest clothes, and never mentioned his company or wealth. And each time, Emma treated him with the same warmth and respect, never asking about his financial situation or hinting at expensive gifts or outings. One evening, as they walked through a neighborhood street fair with Lily skipping ahead, Emma confided in him. "I'm worried about Lily's school," she said quietly. "The public school in our district is struggling, and the private school I'd love to send her to costs more than I make in 3 months." James felt the weight of his secret like a stone. He could write a check that would solve all her problems in an instant. But would that change how she saw him? "Have you looked into scholarships?" he asked instead. Emma nodded. "We're on waiting lists. But there are so many families in need." She squeezed his hand. "It's not your problem, though. I shouldn't burden you with this." "It's not a burden to care about you and Lily," James said, the words coming easily because they were true. Later that night, after he'd said goodbye to Emma at her apartment door with a gentle kiss, James sat in his car, deep in thought. He'd built his fortune by solving problems, by seeing opportunities where others saw obstacles. But this was different. This wasn't business. This was personal, and far more important. The following week, Emma received a call from Brightwood Academy, the private school she'd dreamed of sending Lily to. "Ms. Chen, we're pleased to inform you that Lily has been awarded a full scholarship through our new community outreach program," the administrator said. "It covers tuition through 8th grade, plus supplies and uniforms." Emma nearly dropped the phone. "There must be some mistake," she stammered. "We were number 87 on the waiting list." "No mistake," the woman assured her. "The selection committee was very impressed with Lily's application and your family's situation. The scholarship is anonymous, funded by a local business leader who wishes to remain unnamed." That evening, when James arrived for dinner at Emma's apartment, he found her still in a state of shock. "It's a miracle," she kept saying as she stirred the pasta sauce. "I can't believe it. Lily will have opportunities one never dreamed possible." James smiled, watching her move around the small kitchen. "Sometimes good things happen to good people," he said carefully. Emma stopped and looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You wouldn't happen to know anything about this, would you?" "Me?" James kept his expression neutral. "I work in software development, remember? Not education." Emma studied him for a moment longer, then shook her head. "Of course. I'm just overwhelmed. It feels like things are finally turning around." As they ate dinner with Lily chattering excitedly about her new school, James felt both joy and unease. He was falling in love with Emma, her strength, her kindness, her unwavering devotion to her daughter. But their relationship was built on a partial truth. How much longer could he maintain this charade? The answer came sooner than he expected. 3 days later, as James was leaving a business conference, a photographer snapped his picture entering his company's headquarters. The next morning, his face was splashed across the business section of the newspaper with the headline, "Tech billionaire James Parker announces new AI initiative." He was staring at the article in his office when his phone rang. Emma's name flashed on the screen. His heart sank as he answered. "Emma. Is it true?" Her voice was quiet, controlled. "Yes," he admitted. "I should have told you. You're not just in tech. You're cyber future. You're worth billions." The hurt in her voice cut him deeply. "I wanted you to know me, not my money," he tried to explain. "Every relationship I've had has been tainted by it. People see the wealth, not the person. So you lied to me." Her voice cracked slightly. 4 weeks. "I never lied about who I am," James insisted. "Just what I own." "The scholarship," Emma said suddenly. That was you, wasn't it? James closed his eyes. Yes. The silence that followed was deafening. I need time to think, Emma finally said. Please don't contact me for a while. Before he could respond, she had hung up. For 2 weeks, James respected Emma's request. He threw himself into work, ignoring Michael's concerned glances and the emptiness that seemed to follow him everywhere. He had known this might happen, had feared it from the beginning. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. On the 15th day, he couldn't stand it anymore. He drove to Queens, parked his Honda outside Emma's apartment building, and waited. When she emerged with Lily, both dressed for school, he stepped forward. Emma, he called softly. She stopped, her expression guarded. Lily looked between them, sensing the tension. Can we talk? James asked. Please. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Lily has school. After I drop her off. An hour later, they sat on a bench in a small park, the morning sun filtering through the trees. I'm sorry, James began. I should have been honest with you from the start. Emma looked at her hands. Why weren't you? James took a deep breath. Before I built Cyberfuture, I was engaged. When my first company failed, my fiancé left me for someone more successful. After I became wealthy, every relationship seemed to revolve around what I could provide, not who I was. He met her eyes. Until you. You still should have trusted me, Emma said. How can I trust you now? You're right, James acknowledged. But everything else was real. How I feel about you is real. How I feel about Lily is real. Emma was quiet for a long moment. The scholarship, she finally said. I can't accept it. It's not from me personally, James explained. It's from the Parker Foundation. We fund educational initiatives across the city. Lily qualified on her own merits. The timing was expedited, but she would have received it eventually. Emma looked skeptical. I understand your pride, James continued. It's one of the things I admire most about you. But this isn't about you or me. It's about Lily's future. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can do this, James. Your world is so different from mine. My world is wherever you and Lily are, James said simply. The rest is just stuff. Money doesn't define me any more than your struggles define you. We're both more than our circumstances. Emma wiped her eyes. I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more pretending. Just, be who you are, and let me decide if that's someone I want in my life. James nodded, hope rising in his chest. I promise. 6 months later, Emma stood in James's penthouse, watching the sunset paint the city gold. So much had changed, yet the most important things remained the same. James was still the thoughtful, kind man she had met that rainy night, regardless of his address or bank account. She had insisted on keeping her nursing job, though she now worked more reasonable hours. She and Lily still lived in their Queens apartment, though James was a frequent visitor. The transition hadn't been easy. Tabloids had a field day when they discovered James Parker was dating a ordinary nurse, but they had weathered it together. Penny for your thoughts? James asked, joining her at the window. Emma smiled. I was just thinking about our first date. If you had told me then that I'd be here now, would you have run screaming? James asked with a wry smile. Probably, Emma admitted. But not because of your money. Because I wasn't ready to let anyone in. James took her hand. And now? Emma turned to face him. Now I know that wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in love, in trust, in the family we choose. She squeezed his hand. You're the richest man I know, James Parker. And it has nothing to do with your billions. James pulled her close. "I love you, Emma Chen. You and Lily are the best things that ever happened to me." As they stood together watching the city lights come alive, Emma realized that sometimes the greatest fortunes come disguised as simple moments of connection. And sometimes. As they stood together watching the city lights come alive, Emma realized that sometimes the greatest fortunes come disguised as simple moments of connection. And sometimes the people who have everything in material terms are the ones most starved for what truly matters. 1 year later, James stood nervously in the garden of his Hamptons estate, transformed for the occasion with thousands of wildflowers, Emma's favorite. Lily, now 7, solemnly performed her duties as flower girl, scattering petals along the path where her mother would soon walk. "Are you scared?" Lily had asked him that morning, her small face serious. "A little," James had admitted. "I want to make your mom happy forever." Lily had considered this. "She's already happy. You just have to keep it that way." Now, as Emma appeared at the end of the aisle in a simple white dress, her eyes finding his immediately, James felt a wealth beyond measure fill his heart. The woman who had loved him when she thought he had nothing had given him everything. As Emma reached him, she whispered, "No more pretending." "No more pretending," he agreed, taking her hands in his. Later, as they shared their first dance as husband and wife, with Lily joining them halfway through, James reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had spent years hiding his wealth, fearing it was all anyone would see. Emma had spent years hiding her heart, fearing it would be broken again. In finding each other, they had both found the courage to be fully seen. "What are you thinking about, Mr. Parker?" Emma asked, her head resting against his chest. "About how the richest man in the room isn't the one with the biggest bank account," he replied. "It's the one with the most love in his life." Emma smiled up at him. "Then I guess that makes us both billionaires." As Lily giggled between them, James knew with absolute certainty that no fortune he had ever amassed could compare to the treasure of this moment, this family, this love that had seen beyond appearances to the truth of who he really was. Sometimes the greatest wealth isn't what's in your wallet, but what's in your heart. True connection happens when we're brave enough to be authentic, to show our true selves despite our fears. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Remember, the most valuable things can't be bought, they can only be felt, shared, and cherished.